Hey, welcome back to Outbuilding. I want to spend a day and kind of do a walkthrough of this trailer. I actually have been working on this trailer for quite a while, and I shot a ton of video of it. I think most of that video is kind of redundant with some of the other trailer videos I've done. So I'm going to kind of cut to the key elements that were unique on this trailer, and then also just show you how it's basically 5 trailers in one. These trailers are super handy because you can pick it up by the tongue and run it around like a wheelbarrow. I'm going to be using it primarily behind our tractor out on the coast, and I can use that to move mulch around kind of as a carry-all for different equipment. It's a very, very small little lightweight trailer that you can commonly find. This one was, I think, a Walmart trailer originally, but they're also Harbor Freight makes them. Lowe's has a group of them now. And there's a bunch of different box stores that have these cheap trailers. They're usually several $100s. They weigh very little. You can tow them behind a small vehicle. But there's a lot of utility you can add to them by adding walls, boxes, other things to it. So I'm going to go through the 5 different ways that I use this trailer and how I set it up. Hopefully you learn something from it. If you're interested in watching so that you can learn how to do something on your trailer, it might be a little different, but you can adapt pretty easily to it. So thanks for tuning in. I'm going to go through the 5 different ways you can use this trailer first, and I'll intersperse a couple little sections where I show you the unique things I did to this trailer that sort of accommodate the needs I have. And hopefully you get some ideas from this and it's useful, if not fun to watch and see how this trailer is put together. All right, so the first mode for this trailer is a box trailer, and it's pretty obvious that that's secured. It's also sort of enclosed so that it'll protect things from the weather, whether that's wind or if it's rainy out. And I'm going to sort of take the trailer apart and show you the various parts of it. The doors on this thing they're keyed by this long pin in back, and that pin can be slid back so that you can open the doors and gain access to it. And then the doors I custom made my own hinges, and the hinges just allow the doors to pop off. So you can see there's a pin, and it goes down into a receiving bolt, and I put a piece of angle iron on the back here to both to stiffen this and strengthen it, but also to carry that hinge. So those doors drop in and then they're secured, but they can pop out pretty easily and they're lightweight, so I can remove those. So these trailers all vary in size. This one is, I think it's just over, the interior dimensions here are 45 inches, and it is about 6 feet long, 78 inches long. That's pretty common. A lot of them are 4x8, based on a 4x8 sheet of plywood being lower deck. So this is pretty common for all of them. It's a nice size because, like I said, you can move it around easily. You're not going to tow a big piece of heavy equipment with it, but you are going to be able to move it around in your yard pretty easily and get quite a bit of utility. I didn't make this super tall. I kind of made it basically the same height as the tow vehicle, which is a Jeep Wrangler. To secure the lid on this, I just used a couple small pieces of hardware here, and there's a flange that comes down off the top that attaches to the sides. And I'll show you on the outside. So take off the bolt on this side, and on the outside you can see that I just used a carriage bolt, and the reason for that is that it would be hard for somebody to unbolt it from the outside to take apart the trailer to get into it. All right, with the trailer being so light, it's actually kind of hard to remove the top without knocking the trailer over. So what I do is I just cart it over and hook it up to the tow vehicle, and that seems to work pretty well. Gives you an idea how light it is, though. It's pretty well balanced too, so it's right on its pivot point. All right, so with the hardware off and it hooked up to the tractor, to the tow trailer, I can just slide this lid off. So this open box format is the way I probably will most often use this. It's likely to be used for capturing chips coming off the chipper from the tractor and moving those chips to a general compost area. And so I'll show you how I did the sort of tailgate. At the top of the wall it's got an angle iron sort of end cap, but I put a little notch and a groove in there on both sides, and that allows me to slide the tailgate in. So I'll show you how that works. So the tailgate has a sort of a cut down piece of angle iron that's captured by that, and it slides in. It's a little bit sticky, but I'm able to sort of jam it in between the two sidewalls here. And sidewalls are obviously kind of wobbly without it, but with it in there, it tends to strengthen it up. So that's the lower tailgate, and it's slid in, and I've got couple clips on there with a little handy broom that I can use to sweep it out when I'm doing mulch and stuff. And that I can use this low tailgate on the low walls as well. But anyway, so this is the, like I said, this is the most common way this tailgate sort of stiffens up the sides. So these taller walls and the lower walls are actually both supported by a bolt that goes through. On this trailer, there's an aluminum flange that runs around, and I use that to bolt it in. Some other trailers have stake pockets and other things, so you may have different ways to attach your walls. But this is nice because these get bolted down. Again, I used carriage bolts from the outside, squared out those holes on the outside so that they would captivate the carriage bolts. And then I just use lock nuts in here. And I'll show you kind of a time lapse in reverse of switching from these walls down to the lower walls, which is the third way that you can use this. All right, so with the small walls and the tall walls, they both have this same sort of corner part. So the way I did this was, it's almost like a hinge. I built the front panel, drops in, and then it's kind of, just because of the way this trailer's built, it gets trapped in there. And then I use this pin and this hinge that I built to lock in the other corner. That's super stable. And then if I bolt down this outside, it's going to captivate the front. So that's all locked in and secured. And it's the same thing on the other side here. They're pretty easy to drop in place. And then I just, again, because my trailer has this flange around it, I just bolt to that to hold the sides down. And it secures the sides really well. All right, so with those sides bolted in and pinned in the front, then this little tailgate drops in, and it makes more sense in this small case, and actually slides in a little bit better. So then I have now, that's like the third form, and this is actually super useful, just a little carry-all. It's like a little tiny pickup bed, and that I could tow it behind the Suzuki, I could tow it behind the Jeep, and just about any vehicle can tow it. Weighs almost nothing, but it's great for a little load of lumber or something that you need to haul around. And then with this tailgate, you can pull it in and out, and you can tip the trailer pretty easily to dump it. So that works pretty well. And I'll show you, to dump it, I added a couple things. I knew I'd be driving around in Scotch broom and brush and other things that would shear off any sort of side tail light. When I purchased it, it came with these tail lights that had never been installed, that would have sat on the outside here, but they're pretty hokey, and they would have sheared off in a heartbeat in the terrain I'm going to drive it in. So one of the other things I did is I took a piece of aluminum and I welded up a light bar. And so this is a light bar that you'd normally use as an accent bar on a pickup tailgate, but I put it back here and it's protected by this aluminum shell. It gives a good tail light, it's a reverse light, and it's turn signals and hazards. It's all that stuff baked into a little light bar that is secured, and I can back right into something. It's not going to hit that light. And I filled these pockets on the end with silicone, and so it's actually pretty well protected and works well. And then I wired that into the normal things, and I put other little accent lights on the sides here, and I've got some video. I'll show you little bits and pieces of that process. But those lights have been working pretty well. All right, so the fourth form factor of this is to use the lid on the small trailer to build sort of a mobile work platform. And I realized at the coast property, doing fence repairs, gates, other things, I'm going to need to have kind of a working deck. And as we rebuild the cabin, we won't even have like a work area at times. So I decided to overbuild this top slightly with a piece of 3/4 inch plywood as the top deck to create sort of a working platform, if you will, a mobile workbench. So this slides on the low walls, just like it did on the top wall. And that's why I built the low walls to the size I did, is I built that kind of anticipating that I'd want a work surface. So now I've got a kind of a workbench that I can be bolted down and is at a nice workbench height for me to work. And I can work off the end. I can store tools in there when I travel around on the property, and then use that as a work surface. All right, and then the last form factor is just a flatbed, and that's super useful for carrying lumber, other things that are awkward shaped, easy to get on and off, and I can forklift things on and off from at the coast with this. The trailer is aluminum. I really like that for the marine climate that we're in out there because it won't rust as well or as easily. When I got the trailer, it had some sort of plastic fenders that had been sheared off and were gone. And so one of the little deep dives I'll do in this video is showing you how I hand-built some fenders. And that was actually a really kind of fun little project to do with some sheet metal. But this is the basic overview of how this thing's put together. It's been super useful so far. So I'm gonna switch gears here and head out to the coast, and I'll show you the first use of this as we started trying to use it for chipping. So this hitch is just an extra piece that bolts on, and you can put any sort of receiver hitch on there. I've just got a 2-inch ball on, and it'll make it super handy to move around. So I have to admit, I didn't think of this when I was building it, but the trailer needs to be flipped around so that the chips can go in, and then it can also dump, which is actually fine because I need to be able to get in and out of the spaces I'm working anyway. But it was something I hadn't thought of until we got out here actually using it. So I'll flip it around so that the chute's going into it. So the first test worked well, and since then we've made a mountain of mulch from several piles like that, and it's working really well. I'm gonna take a minute and deep dive into now the making of the fenders, because that was probably one of the more fun parts of the project, and also something that was a little bit unique compared to the other trailer projects I've done. I just need to have some little fenders that cover for water splash, and I started by just hacking up a piece of cardboard and kind of getting a rough idea of what I want to build. Then I went over to the computer and drew it up a little bit more carefully so that I had specific dimensions and stuff. And then I'm going to use a piece of this, this is 16th inch diamond plate aluminum. I'm going to try to build it out of that and TIG weld that up. And if you've not seen it, there's a guy named Carl Fisher who does just brilliant metal work online on YouTube and probably elsewhere. This is nothing like what he does, but he is inspirational. So I'm going to see if I can't sort of beat some bends into this thing and TIG weld it up and build little fenders for this. It'd be a good project for me to learn some of that. So thanks, Carl. So the thing I find most impressive about Carl's work is that he has probably every machining or sheet metal tool known to mankind, but he does almost everything he does with just simple hammers and is just really creative with that. So I'm gonna try, basically I need to build a C-channel with a differential leg. It's gonna have a 1-inch leg on one side and a 2-inch leg on the other side. And then I'll build that flat and then I'll cut little notches on it and then kick it into the fender shape. So to do that, I'm going to try this, and I've never done this before, so I'll see how it goes, but I'm going to try clamping this between two pieces of wood here with the right offset. And then you just use the hammer and you just slowly work your way down bit by bit. and bend it over. I'm using a rubber mallet. I don't really have, there's a bunch of different dead blow hammers and things that you can use. I just went and picked this up. This was super inexpensive, and I'll give it a try. I don't want to use a regular hammer because I'll mar the finish, and we want that sexy diamond plate look when we're done. So I'll clamp this up and see how it goes and see what I can come up with. I changed my mind a little bit. I'm going to use metal instead. I think it's well, certainly stronger, but this has got a nice radius on it, and so I think the metal that I'm bending will take on that radius, and I can get this to clamp quite a bit tighter so that it's not deforming when I'm hammering on it in a way that is counterproductive. So I'm switching to metal. A little bit at a time. All right, well, that's kind of fun. I didn't quite get it to 90, and I don't know if maybe hitting it harder or getting a better angle. It's a little bit varied, so I think I can clean it up a little bit once it's out of the mold, but it really did conform to that lower piece of metal in a nice way. So I've got a rounded curve from the radius on the lower piece, and the upper piece was just holding it steady. But I'm kind of psyched. That looks pretty nice, and that'll work absolutely perfectly for the fender. So I'll get the other side here and then do the others, and then we'll start notching them and bending them. That worked pretty well. I was able to kind of clean those up and get them pretty much to right angles. I'm fired up. It's nice to learn something new. So now this is going to be kind of an interesting paper folding problem. I've got these radius bends, which is nice. I want those, but then I want to cut. I want to bend my angles on my fender here. And if I make just a complete triangular notch, it's not going to accommodate that bend. So I'm going to hack up a piece of just a little scrap here and do that bend in it, just to kind of figure out what that shape is going to be like. It's going to be a funny little cutout that will allow the radius to work. So I'm just going to measure out, but I'm going to bend over a little, like a fake fender here, and practice with it. Okay, now I've got a scrap with that 45 or that radius in it. So I want to cut 45, so I need to put in a 22.5 on each side to get the 45 out of it. And I've got sort of a center line there, which I can kind of extend. So I'm going to use the saw, even though I could probably cut those with tin snips, but I kind of want to do this the same way I'll do it with the other piece. So I'll saw this. Now I'm assuming I want that radius to hit the same way, so I'm going to try this and see if this works. And this will tell me whether I've got my stuff cut right too. So that's giving me my 45, but it looks like I need to come in. I don't want to have a gap like that to fill when I weld. I want to have a nice fitment. So I will see if I can't reproduce that on the other stuff. This was just sort of a test piece, but I'll crowd my lines in a little bit and see if I can't get it to land, and then I can start my weld and carry it down and close off that 45 and end up with a pretty smooth corner here. All right, well, this is a little bit of a hack, but it might work. This is the piece I cut out of my test. So I have my sample piece, and I cut that piece out, and it's got a nice little center line on it. And since the saw kerf on both sides is going to be pretty close, I'm just gonna use this to mark my cuts and see if I don't get kind of close to what I want to do. I'll try this end piece here first and see how it goes, and then if that works, I'll do the others that way. All right, this has got a really nice big radius on it. I cut out a piece, and I'm just going to relieve the corners because the aluminum seems to take up whatever, it picks up whatever you've got in there. So I'll go ahead and relieve these corners so that it'll conform to that and be nice and smooth. All right, I'll just try to do this slowly and see how it goes. One more try here with it better supported. All right, it's kind of a poor man's hammer and dolly, but I'm going to try to bend it around. Didn't quite get it on the right corner as I bent it before. All right, I'm kind of making this up as I go, but overall, I've got one joint that is with a little bit of encouragement, I can get it to sit flat. So I'm going to try to tack it up and get it welded, and then I'll kind of work my way around and pound on the panel as I go. There's probably another way to do it, but I'm going to try it this way and see how this works. All right, it's a new day, and now I kind of have the process figured out. So with a little bit of muttering and banging on these and torquing, I was able to get this thing nice and square, get that first corner done, and get the welds tacked in. So that's one of 4 I need on this, and then 4 on the other one, so I have 8 of these to go. And I'll just repeat that process. I'll mark it out, cut these little relief, little corners, and then bang on it and get it squared. And I'll weld as I go so I can keep the whole thing flat and square and get to those 45-degree angles that I want overall. But this is going to work really well. It's kind of fun to work on something new. Again, Carl, I thank you for inspiring this, and I will get to work here. My wife's in on the radio. It's super early in the morning, and I'll turn on the radio, put on a time lapse, and I'll work with her, and we'll get this thing done for having fenders.
Take me home, take me on a ride. I got a good feeling about the colors lighting up your eyes. Take me home, take me to the sky. I got a good feeling. Tell me the only thing you are is mine now. Na, 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 na. I got a good feeling. Na, 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 na. I got a good feeling. Good feeling.
Okay, well, I learned as I went, but I got the first one done. It actually worked really well. I rounded off the corners a little bit so I don't have these sharp parts. And a couple things I learned when I was putting the marks down I learned where to offset that cut with the saw so that it would close down to a pretty close, short gap. I was filling a gap that was, I don't know, no more than, less than 1/8 of an inch, but greater than 1/16 of an inch. A little bit more than I'd like, but I was able to close them down, and I had to file a little bit more than I would love to, and it ended up getting it to work. I also learned where to, when I was setting it on my little dolly, to kind of bend this curve over, where to line that up with the line so that I wouldn't tear out the corners. And then lastly, I would look at either side, and whichever side was in better fitment, I'd go ahead and weld that one up first, and then that kind of let me, it made it easier to then go back to the lesser side and fix it. All right, well, that wraps up the video for this trailer. The fenders were a lot of fun to make, and so it was kind of neat to show you the more detailed view of that. Hopefully you enjoyed watching that. The other parts of this trailer are pretty common to the trailer videos that I did before, so if I can add a link to those at the end of this, and you can take a look at those if you want to see how the walls go together and some of the other components. If there's something specific you want to have a question about, please leave a comment in the bottom, and I will try to do my best to respond to those. So thanks a lot for watching. I really appreciate it, and if you get a chance, please subscribe and watch more of these as they come out. Until I see you next, I'll be out building.